It's time for us to look at stories that made it to the front pages of our dailies. Starting off with Daily Trust. We have boldly on the front page of Daily Trust. Opponent dissect Tinubu's tax reform bills. ACF submits memoranda. Will be thorough, says Akpabio. Now you find that story on page 4, a continuation of the story on page 4 in Daily Trust. Now moving on to the top left, Customs withdraw 4% import charges. Tinubu to set up committee on census. PDP Kwankwaso's faction Rurum differs over suspension. Now still on Daily Trust, we have Tinubu, not National Assembly, drops me as minister. This is what RFI said on his interview yesterday with Arise News. He said a lot yesterday during that interview, if you happen to have watched it. Still on Daily Trust, tenant beats up landlord over house rents. That's the case of bush meets chasing the hunter. All right, still on Daily Trust, drug abuse, domestic violence on increase in Northwest. 9 killed, 3 injured in Lagos-Ibadan road crash. You find that on page 7. Now for the picture, it's a public hearing on the tax reform bill at the National Assembly here yesterday. All right, those are the people, and that's exactly what happened at the public hearing. Those are the stories we have on the front page of Daily Trust. All right, now moving on to Guardian. On the Guardian, 53,225 pre-trial detainees languish in jail despite push to pardon politicians. You'd find that there on prison decongestion, with lots of numbers saying 80,066 persons detention nationwide. Only 34% or 26,000 have been convicted and serving jail term. That's 1,125 per inmate daily. The federal government to spend 21.8 billion to feed pre-trial inmates. 4,000 pre-trial detainees have been pardoned to date. Awaiting trial in Port Harcourt, you have 1,810. In Enugu, you have 2,290. In Kuje, you have 768. Suleja, 190. Lagos, 6,629. This needs to be looked into. Now, still on the Guardian, at the top left, 400,000 naira per truck. Maritime transporters threaten strike over extortion in Lagos. Native doctors protest alleged witch hunt by Soludo's administration, and NNPP suspend 7 Kano senators and 3 reps. Still on Guardian, RFI threatens to dump APC over lack of internal democracy, rules out move to PDP. Tinubu considers committee for fresh census, and Tinubu tax National Assembly on a workable tax law. On drug abuse, 1 million of Northwest, 3 million addicts in Kano. Abia, Rivers, Zamfara, Kano, and 11 others lack female lawmakers. And Ayedatewa takes oath of office and pardons 43 inmates at inauguration. Those are the stories we have on the front page of Guardian. Now let's take a look at this day. Boldly on this day, RFI, Tinubu, not National Assembly, rejected my nomination. We found that story as well. You have that story there on this day. Still on this day, we also have oil marketers threaten strike, give federal government 7 days to offset 100 billion naira debt. Saudi agriculture company to acquire 44.58 stake in Olam Agric for 1.78 billion naira. Emefiele accused judges of bias, unjust handling of questions in ongoing trial. Those are the stories we have on the front page of this day newspaper there. So if you're interested in a copy or interested in the stories there, do grab yourself a copy and keep yourself informed. All right, now let's take a look at Blueprint. On Blueprint, NNPCL, RMAFC, Arewa think tank orders back tax reform. And on 282 billion naira fraud, ex-governor Bello's name not on property document, says witness. Still there, Super Eagles on sports. Super Eagles approach each game as it comes, says Osimhen. Acts decisively to end terrorism, CDS charges commander, and reinstated Osun local government chairman issued 72 hours ultimatum to workers. No going back, NLC replies. Scrapping third funnel will be catastrophic, Kogi Varsity VC warns, and 9 die in Ogun crash. NDLA flags of campaign as drug abuse hits 3 million in the northwest. Those are the stories we have on Blueprints, their newspaper. All right, now in the studio joining us to look at stories that have made it to the front pages of our daily. To analyze them, we have Dr. Theophilus Abba, Program Director, Daily Trust Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, let's talk about this whole tax reform bill and the public hearing. I'm seeing the pictures, and the pictures are what I expected from public hearing. You know, I expected to see at least 1 or 2 regular Nigerians, and not necessarily the high and mighty, a lot more young people there involved. You know, but what's your take on how this is going gradually, and the fact that they are bringing it out to the news for us to see how transparent it is?
Okay, I think the tax reform bill is at a crucial stage now. You know, for a bill to become a law, Nigerians who are what we call stakeholders, ordinary Nigerians, are supposed to make contributions, to express their viewpoints, to express their support and their doubts, you know, on any law. And that is the stage where we are now. And from what happened at the National Assembly, it's very clear that different stakeholders are there, or were there yesterday, to argue in line with their interests. For instance, I mean, the story is telling us that Arewa Consultative Forum is saying, look, this speed at which you are increasing the VAT rate is too high. You know, it was 5% during the Buhari, shortly before he left, increased to 7.5. You say it will become 10% before the end of the year, and then by 2030 it will become 15%. It's too high, because that increases the burden on Nigerians. You know, then others are saying, like the manufacturers are saying, look, you cannot tax anything that's produced in the free trade zone. You know, because the law is saying that if it's a free trade zone is within the Nigerian territory, you must pay tax on whatever they sell. And the manufacturers are saying, no, we can't accept that. Then there are other, persons who are there who argue on different aspects of the tax. You know, others are arguing that if you ask people to carry tax ID card, you know, it means that you don't want them to use banks, because for what the law is saying is that for you to operate a bank account, you must have a tax ID card. Then even whatever you call the threshold is too low. Because you are saying that for you not to pay tax, you should earn less than 80,000. You know, so how many people are earning less than that amount? So you see a lot of things. People are coming up based on their own areas of focus to say, look, this does not all go well for us. This is not good for us. Even though some people are saying, well, we support it, maybe because there are so many things that they will benefit if the tax law comes into effect. You know, but the actual the situation is that, look, we have kept on, you know, talking about tax, increasing VAT and all this and all that. But then the important thing which many Nigerians have argued is that those who pay tax, you know, are very few. It's only civil servants who really pay tax, or maybe company owners who really pay tax. But the rich people, those who have property, who have wealth, you know, they have not been really captured in the tax basket. You know, so if they have not captured the tax bracket, and that is why a whole lot of money accrues to government, but not in the government treasury.
All right.
So there are a lot of arguments about this tax. This idea of taxing the ordinary man, taxing the salary man, taxing the person who buys pure water, who buys biscuit. You know, you say he has to pay VAT on all the little things that he buy. You are collecting too much money from the poor, but the very rich, who should pay a lot of tax, are not paying.
All right, now moving away from that now, because we see that is something that's happening. Before we get to one particular story, we're talking about, you know, census. We've seen that over the years, monies have been allocated to census, materials have been gotten. It was like ready, set, and the goal was not set. What's your take on Tinubu wanting to bring back census and tasking committees on it at the moment? Do you see it happening at this point?
Well, I think setting up a committee on census is an overkill, because you have the National Population Commission, which has a statutory rule of organizing census at every 10 years. And this has not happened since 2006, I think. So for almost 20 years now, we've not had census. The figures we are working with are just approximation. We say, okay, if the birth rate increased by 3% every year, then from 2006, when we had the last census, 3% every year, you calculate it, you now arrive at a population of 220 million, 230 million, which is not precise. Death and birth, they are not properly recorded in Nigeria. Even in the colonial era, death and birth were recorded even in rural areas. But since the era of what we call independence and whatever we call our own level of civilization, the death and birth are not recorded. If you have proper recording of death and birth, you can actually have something close to the total population figure. Even as you go, you can go on the portal and say, okay, how many Nigerians do we have? What's the population of the country as at 25th of February 2025? And you can enter the portal and say, okay, even yesterday, there were about 50,000 deaths. And even yesterday, hospital recorded about 20,000 deaths. And so if you add the figure, this is the population. It has not happened. So we are thinking that setting up a committee is like, oh, let's see how this is done. Over the years, like I said, we've been talking about our population by, adding the percentages and figures. Some of them not totally correct. Now, developed societies, they know their population per time, because you need a population for planning. Sure. For instance, how many people are going to graduate from departments of mass communication from Nigerian universities in 2025? Then the question that Ministry of Labour should answer is, where would they get jobs? How many people are graduating as engineers? Where are the vacancies for them to fill? If you don't know where these vacancies are, you have to create. Government must do something to say, okay, well, we're expecting 20,000 engineers to be to enter into the labor market in 2026. We have to create jobs for them. Yeah. So that is the importance of population census. It's not just even knowing the number, knowing where we are. What are we doing? Where are the professionals? Where do we lack professionals? Where do we need to emphasize in our education? It also determines the curriculum that we should design for education. It determines a whole lot of things. When you keep approximating, when you keep guessing your population, you can't get anything right.
All right. Still in terms of guessing population and how Nigeria seems to ignore things, we saw the lead story on Guardian talking about 53,000 pre-trial detainees languish in jail. The case of just arresting someone and throwing the person in prison and no case of trial or anything. What is your case on these numbers? The numbers are alarming. 80,000 persons in detention. You have 1,800 in Port Harcourt, 2,000 awaiting trial, 2,000 in Enugu, 778 in Kuje, 119 in Suleja, 6,629 in Lagos. These people are awaiting trial. They've not been convicted, they've not been tried, they've not been sentenced, nothing. They don't even know their cases. They are just awaiting trial. What is your take on these numbers and what needs to be done?
Well, there are different layers, to look at. The first thing is that since 2008, 2007, 2008, during the era of Yar'Adua, when Yar'Adua was president, the issue of prison discongestion has been there. Nigerians have been talking about prison discongestion. I know that even there's a ministry or one of the agents of government that actually had funds, that was issued out to organizations that will go into, decongestion of prisons. Daily Trust Foundation has actually played its own role, trying to see how we can decongest prison. And from our own experience, we have been to some states to pay fines on behalf of some inmates, those who don't have prison terms attached to their jail term. They don't have prison terms attached to their detention. For instance, we have somebody who is in detention or who is in prison because he couldn't pay 15,000 naira fine. Some couldn't pay 10,000 naira fine. And you see, if Daily Trust Foundation puts together about 3 million, we can actually free almost 30 persons from prison. Even more than almost 40 persons, we can free them from prison when we put 33 million naira into the payment of the fines. So you see young people who are thrown into jail, you meet them, they say, well, I don't even know. I was walking on the road, somebody brought me here, and they said I should pay 20,000. I can't even contact my family members. Nobody knows I'm here. You understand? So we on our own part, as a foundation, will pay some of these fines, and then go to the court and work out their release. And we released many inmates. But what that tells you is that our justice system needs to be refined. Now you can't just arrest somebody from the street and throw the person into jail, and then you now tell us that government is paying 1,500 and all this and all that. So what I'm saying in essence is that even the prison congestion policy of government has not been properly administered. If government had done it properly, many of these guys will not be in prison. If you owe, a state government can say, okay, let me get if your fine is, let's say, 100,000, and you have spent 6 months, get out of that place. You understand? Unless you have been convicted, and the judge says, okay, you are convicted, you are going to be in jail for 5 years. Then you will be in jail for 5 years. If you are not convicted, maybe you couldn't pay a fine of 30,000, 40,000, or maybe you damage somebody's goods, and they say you should repay. And you are supposed to pay 100,000 for the damage, and you don't have that money to pay. The state government should say, okay, we want to decongest these prisons, all these guys get out, and we'll pay on their behalf. Most of them did not commit violent crimes. So we expect that government to take this issue seriously. You can't be keeping people in jail, just for nothing. And from my own, because I've had people who are not justly put in detention. I have a cousin. He was working at a transport company. So the policeman came, arrested some persons, and then the police are dragging those people. They broke their mirror. There is a vehicle's mirror, and he must say, "Oga, people don't break our mirror. Look at it now. We are going to travel. We are going to Lagos. Now this mirror is broken. We can't even fix it." The policeman said, "Follow me." He followed the policeman. They got to the police station, and the man went to the DPO and said, "Look, this man was obstructing my duty to arrest somebody." He said, "No, I did not stop you. What I said was that you broke our mirror." The next thing, they threw him into the police cell, and by the time they called me, he was already in prison in Kefi. We had to run up and down. What happened? They were just, charging him for obstructing enforcement of police. So you see things like that, and you hear people say, "I was just passing by." They raided the place, and so we should. Our police officers, and our judges should ensure that they don't do this. They don't just punish people unnecessarily.
All right,
because
now
they have the power.
Still on our review, we have drug abuse. They're saying that 1 million of Northeast, addicts, 1 million of the 3 million addicts and drug problem in the Northeast is from Kano alone. What's your thought on our drug problem and the alarming number from just one state? First of all, the alarming number from the Northeast, with that one state having over 1 million. What's your take on that?
Well, I think we did an investigation into drug abuse in Kano, and I think it was aired on Trust TV. And the magnitude is really it's a very serious problem in Kano. We know that the NDLA is doing a whole lot. Among the states in Nigeria, and Kano is one of the states where NDLA has arrested many people and prosecuted them. Many of them are in court, many of them are facing investigation and all this and all that. So it's actually a very serious issue in Kano. But then if you talk about Kano, also talk about population. If you enter the street of Kano, for those of us who had lived in Kano before, if you enter the street of Kano today, you just be scared because of the population. People, so have a lot of people on the street. This is working hour. So those who are supposed to be at work, they are not at work. Those who are supposed to be at school, they are not at school. You see them loitering about. They are sitting under trees, doing nothing. And when somebody is idle, I had the opportunity of taking drugs. Say, well, let me just, while away the boredom, let me take drugs and all this and that. So most of the people who take these drugs are quite idle. Then by the time they start taking drugs, the next thing is to engage in crime, because they need to commit crime. They need to raise the money to buy these drugs, because these drugs don't come, so cheaply. So they need to raise money. So you now talk about the level of crime and all this and all that. But the bottom line to me is the population figure factor. There's this story I read, an analysis I read. I was told that in 1960, when Nigeria gained independence, the population of Nigeria was about 43 million or 45 million. The population of the UK was about 50 something million, 53 or 55 million. Then as at today, I don't think the population of UK is up to 70 million.
All right.
But Nigeria is what, 200 something million. You can see planlessness. We're just ballooning, increasing, and that tells you why the facilities are not enough. That is why even almost the social services cannot be. And
he also explains why we need census in the long run to ascertain the number of Nigerians.
Because the population is. Some of us who have more than 4 children are feeling guilty. When I read it, I started feeling guilty. Because there's no sensitization. People are not properly, educated on how to control bad, and on how to ensure that they don't have too large families. It's a problem.
When we talk about the issue of misinformation, education, and the population we have in Nigeria, we will not stop talking, because that is a lot, to talk about. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for always coming in for our review. We do appreciate you, and we do not take it for granted. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, to our listeners out there, unfortunately we've come to the end of the show today. I hope we've been able to keep you informed. I hope we've been able to educate you and keep you entertained and also engage you. To everyone who called in on the show this morning, we say a very big thank you for your contribution, and to everyone who sent WhatsApp messages, we say thank you very much. We do not take it for granted. We appreciate you joining in on our show every morning. At the top of the hour, we'll have business, we'll also have sports, and we'll have our news. So just stay tuned. On behalf of the production crew, thanks for watching. I am Lilian Ogazi. Bye for now.